A very good evening, everybody. 1 minute and we'll be live. Just got to play the kind of start show thing. Do you know what I mean? And then I've got Jonathan in the green room. We'll be right with you. Well, a very good day. I hope you can hear me and I'm not on mute or anything. If I just fire up the comments, I'll be able to. There's a bit of a delay, isn't there, on StreamYard? I talk about 20 seconds, 30 seconds later, you get it. So there we are. I've made some notes regarding the live stream if you've just watched it, which is about the DX Commander Expedition. I've got a little film I might be able to just kind of feed in. I don't know if that's working. No, it's not. So we'll play it. There we are. But without too much ado, let us bring in young Jonathan. Hello, mate. How you doing?
Hello. I'm all right. How are you?
I'm not too bad. It was actually a 39-minute video, so I apologise. But if somebody actually wanted to build a DX Commander Expedition, I wanted to give them all the tools available. But there was a lot of questions that came up, and I knew there would be. I couldn't cover everything in the video. Well, I could have done if I thought about it, but I didn't.
It would have been a long video.
It would have been a long video, yeah, okay. So I'll tell you what I'm going to cover. I want to cover fumbling around in the dark. I mean, building this thing in the dark.
Yeah.
The clamp, the HCL easy clamps, we'll cover that. How many elements can we honestly put on? We'll cover that as well. The 80-meter hack, we'll do that. Jonathan mentioned something, lighter versus blow lamp versus heat gun and all that sort of stuff. Why a closed loop for 10 meters? All right. Why couldn't you do it for all elements? Interesting. We'll cover that too. Bandwidth, we'll cover that. The 40-meter linear loading and the top of 40 meters, and we'll cover that as well. Anyway, a very good evening. My volume is a little low. Well, I'll just tell you what to do. To balance it out, I will ask Jonathan to turn his mic volume down.
I turned me down. Is that better?
1, 2, 1, 2. I can go up. I might start clipping. 1, 2. Hopefully that is a wee bit better. I'm not through the big mixing desk. I'm through the little Focusrite thing here. So there we are. Hopefully that's just done it for you. All right. Okay. Now, let's start off where we want to finish, which is you've taken that home with you now.
Yes.
And how are you getting on?
It's fantastic.
Why?
Because it is so quick to put together. And that was the thing that I found with the previous version. It was always a bit of a timely thing to do. But the new one is just so quick.
Okay, which bit is faster?
Putting the elements on. And
okay, so that really does work. Because I haven't actually used it in anger. I've just built it in the field, you know.
No, it really does. I've had it up and down a few times. And I'm still not quite at Tom levels of speed. But I mean, it could easily take me 25, half an hour to get the other one up. Whereas, I've done it in 15 on the new one.
Yeah, and with practice, what do you think?
Oh, with practice, sub 10.
Yeah, okay, fine. And presumably there's going to be tricks about little Velcro straps and things like that.
Exactly, there is exactly. There are optimizations to make, and I've only used bits of electrical tape so far to sort of bind the radials up together. Yeah, but some like Velcro.
$1 on Amazon, you could get 10 little pink and orange and blue, whatever Velcros or something like that. Yeah, okay, fine. All right, so I'm really keen to go out in the dark, probably the winter, and actually build this thing, with a head torch. I think it'd be a lot quicker.
I've taken it down in the dark.
Okay.
That was quite easy.
Yeah, I'm sure it would be thinking about it, wouldn't it? Because you see, in the old days, you had to thread the bloody elements through the holes.
Yeah.
A
And then
pain
when
in
you
the
pull them
arse.
back through, the
Oh, they
the
get
heat shrink would
tangled.
get
Yeah,
stuck.
yeah, I know, I know. Okay, the little speed clamps.
Yes.
Now, I use them all, or I anticipate using them. And I'll tell you why. Because when you go out in the hot sun and then it gets cold at night, and you've got reasonable tension pulling down, you get different shrinkage and things happening with fiberglass, don't you?
Yes.
And I've woken up in the morning and the thing's down here.
Yes.
Doesn't happen on the same temperature range all the time, but it's temperature changes that does that, I think.
Yeah, I think it's temperature changes and just the tension overall.
Yeah, yeah. So completely optional. If you're just out for the afternoon, use a couple at the base because that's where most of the pressure is. And you could leave the others off. But I mean, crikey, how long does it take you to put those clamps? By the way, there's a trick, isn't there? You keep your clamps and your plates, and you put a bit of shock cord or something in a clip, so they're
Yes.
always in the same place. So you take the clip off, slide it over the pole, and you know that all the
It's
plates.
completely foolproof doing it that way.
Yeah,
And yeah, by the time you're having to slide down the plates anyway, you may as well just slide down the clamps as well. And I'm going to say it's a minute at maximum just to go up the hole and then just tighten all the clips.
yeah. Okay, fine. Do clips. How many elements? Okay, we've got 6. Now, Mike, I don't know if he's followed us here. Ham radio tube used to be. It used to be Mr. Dath K8 MRD or something.
Yeah, I mean,
But
he still is KMRD, but he just doesn't go by it anymore.
and Mike's done all sorts. He loves mucking around with the expedition. He does all sorts of hacks, and I think he's put a dedicated 6 meter up one side. But I always anticipated an inverted L. But of course, it wasn't until I had everything cut and I'm out in the field. I'm thinking, how are we going to put an inverted L up for 80 because it would come out the speed slot? But I've thought about it. You used to have a little bit of a spare shock cord that you slip over the pole, and that becomes your kind of anchor point, if you like, for an inverted L. What do you think?
What, and fasten it in the same way you
No, just ignore the plate. I mean, you could go up. You could go up the plate, go up a little bit further, a little bit of shock cord, a bit like how with the cap was held in
yeah.
place when you take it off. You just have 6 inches of shock cord and another little loop, and your inverted
Oh,
L would
okay.
go up through it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's one way. Okay.
Yeah, there's
All right.
certainly would work.
Yeah. Blowtorch versus heat shrink. Right. There's a couple of times on this build where it's ideal to have some heat. One is the heat shrink itself.
Hmm.
One is just seal the shock cord because it's a braid, isn't it, on the
Yes.
outside? And then when you're out in the field, maybe doing the loops and whatever else. And you happen to mention a lighter. I suppose a lighter would work, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's only for I was thinking more of the shock cord rather than the heat shrink. I think heat shrink I've only ever done with a heat gun, but the shock cord, if you don't have one of your fancy little flamethrower things, then you can just use a
Yeah.
lighter.
Yeah. Tom wants to know, at speed clamps in sub-zero temperatures, I think you'll find nylon 66 goes way down, so don't worry about that. And if you are out and it's freezing cold, don't use them. Okay, closed loop for 10 meters. So this is, right. Over the years, I've worked out there's some people who do things that I just didn't imagine. For instance, whisper at 1,000 watts, which is 1 hour, 1 minute 50. Well, it's 2 minutes of key down.
Yeah.
And things stress, things get hot. And I tell you what did get hot, particularly on the 10 meter band on a quarter wave, the very top of 10 meters, that loop comes up, and it was an open loop, so it was it got very hot and melted.
Yeah.
So Rowley helped me out and did some development, and he took it and he closed it off like we did in the video, and that stops happening. So the end of the element is now at the top of that closed loop, and it's a bigger top. Corona discharge and things like that is easier. And sorry, Tom was saying one good tip would be to mark the plates of a certain element. Let's just think about mark the plates, which element goes where, slide the plates. I don't think you need to do that now, do we?
You would only need to do that if you're going with your idea about the 80-meter inverted L. Otherwise, you wouldn't need to.
You wouldn't need to. Okay, fine. So, but somebody, it was GM for, I don't know if he's here now, had to ask, well, why don't we do that with all the elements? You can do, but you'd need to lengthen the element. All right. So, for instance, on 20 meters, just make sure you've got enough room between the top of the element and the next plate to get the full quarter wave, because we cheat a bit. Not actually on the expedition so much. So you could do that. Lengthen the whole thing by 2 centimeters and put the loop there, and you could have a closed loop there as well. How about that? Okay. Bandwidth. How are you finding the bandwidth, Jonathan?
I found the bandwidth to be perfect. The only thing I've noticed is I made up an element for 17 meters, which when I have 17 meters on as well as the 10-meter element, it has lengthened the 10-meter element electrically.
Fine. Okay. So you either put 17 and 10 at the same time and reach into 10, or leave 17 off and take off 10.
Exactly.
It'd take you about 37 seconds.
Exactly. So, yeah.
But, okay, the point is, I think, if you are a 4 or 5 or 6 band man, you just fit them all, because it means it only takes too long. It doesn't take too long, does it? So you'll be able to just, I mean, we calculated, I think you mentioned this on the phone actually, it's about half an inch. And instead of rehacking that top where the closed loop is, you cut the fork connector off and put another one on.
Exactly.
You can mathematically calculate it, can't you?
Yeah, you can do. And it's just going back to the closed loop thing. It's just worth saying that you only really need to do that closed loop if you're running serious power.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, I'm talking, this is, you got to remember, there's a lot of people who do FT8 at 5, 6, 7, 8, well, 1500 watts, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it is ridiculous, really.
At the 100 watts I'm ever likely to put into the antenna, I think it's going to be
it doesn't matter at all, yeah. We did, when Tom, we had a bit of a private DX fest with Jonathan, Tom, and 6 or 7 of us up at the factory about a month ago. And Tom will have to remind me, I can't remember, I think it was in the evening when I had just had enough to drink. I tried 400 watts of whisper. Okay, and the amp got very hot. But we were heard all the way around the world.
I think
on 30 meters that was.
At that point, you're making your own propagation.
Okay, so this linear loading on 40 meters. How do I describe linear loading on 40 meters? Is it important I cover it now? All we're doing is we're shortening 40 meters very slightly by a couple of 3 feet by folding it over 3 or 4 times as much. What happens in the process, we just happen to get 15 in as well. How are you finding the bandwidth and SWR curve on 15?
Perfect.
Okay.
Not had a single problem with it.
The thing is, it all works. Any other hack, what would happen is that if you've got an antenna that's resonant on, let's say, 7.2. By the way, bandwidth's huge. So if it's resonant on 7.2, it's to be less than 1.5 to 1, not 7.4. But 7.2, your next harmonic would be actually above 21.6. It'd be 21.7 to 21.8. And this little complete accident just happens to bring it down to 21.23, something like that. What's Tim got to say? Bear in mind, if you're outpulled at 100 watts or less, sub 2 to 1 is fine. Real world, no difference. No to be too fussy. Absolutely, Tim. Nathan wants to know where 27 megahertz band. Oh, meters. You could actually, if you really wanted to do this, you could make up another element next to it and make it about 4 inches longer, and it would do 27, maybe less than that, top of 40. Something that nobody's asked, but I'll leave that there just to give it a minute. Could you leave it up permanently? I actually don't see any reason why this couldn't be permanent at all. I've definitely had an expedition up for 2 weeks when I went on a holiday. It was like any other DX commander, just stuck there. In fact, when the wind really blows, the nice thing about the expedition, it just goes right over and comes back again. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I mean, I suppose like fundamentally, the only difference between the expedition and any other DX commander is the fact the pole folds down to a shorter length.
Yeah, that's it.
Or telescopes down to a shorter length. But otherwise, there'd be no reason why you couldn't leave it up permanently.
Yeah. So, Jason, the height is, the spec is 9.5, which is really handy because we only need, to get 40 and 15 working, we only need about 9 meters, right? 9.2 is nice. So this hack we did for the classic, you could also do for the expedition, the top of 40 meter. You could actually do that on any of the other smaller ones as well. But yeah, 9.5 meters. What's Tom got to say? FT8 with 1500 watts. We didn't do that, Tom. I don't think. Not that day, anyway. Oh, what's John's in? No reason you can't leave one up for a long run. I leave mine for a week at a time when camping, says John. Okay, fine. Lovely. Oh, somebody's ordered one for the garden and take on some club field days and holidays. Guy stakes, all right? What are you using for guy stakes? We talked about this briefly, didn't we?
We did. So I tend to only have mine up for a couple of hours at a time. So I tend to use tent pegs.
Tent pegs.
But if I was going to, yeah, exactly. But if I was going to do sort of a longer, I'd probably get some sort of heavier duty type tent pegs that you can get. I've seen at camping stores.
Yeah. If you go out regularly and the wind's not blowing, terribly, a lot of my testing I've done where I take the DX one, I lean it against the tree, right?
Yeah, I've done that.
Whatever.
When I was making the 17 meter element, that's exactly what I was doing.
Okay. It's a private joke. Some Burke did 1500 watts FT8. I think you find that was actually whispered, Tom. So Nathan says, oh yes, the expedition will bend over beyond belief. It's a serious hardy antenna. Don't let wind put you off operating. It depends on your diet.
Yeah.
How much wind you're prepared to put up with. Oh, here we are. John, tent stakes, camp jams. Okay, these are fancy things. You see, John, I was telling, I don't like gadgets because I'm a cheapskate. I know my knots, but I think the really expensive fancy tensioners probably great. All right. I never demonstrate it with that, and I don't own any anyway. I never demonstrate it with that because I think it's important that people see that out the box, apart from the tent pegs, out the box you can do what I do. If you want to go, there's lots of people, hacking it. I know Mike hacks is. People come up with other ideas. It's a great base if you wanted to, do a bit more experimenting.
I have to say that's one of the things. So on the previous one that I had, I did use like some carabiners on the end of my guys to clip onto the plate. And actually, I've not bothered with the new one because I just found it easier just to do what you do with the knots.
Yeah, okay. I can't remember what Tom did, actually. Tom, did you have gadgets? Yeah, you're a military man. Maybe I
suppose if you have got a clever kind of strain relief, or kind of a tensioner, and a carabiner, that could aid the speed of putting it up. But you're looking at a couple of minutes at most.
Yeah. Randall, this is an esoteric question, but I will answer it. Randall, he wants to know if the 40 meter gives you 15. Why do we have basically what I'm reading here is why do we have a separate one on the 15 meter band for the 12.4? And that's because all the other blooming harmonics were getting in the way after I'd put 80 and 30 on it with the coil. A bit more development required there, but if I can get it on the one element, I would prefer it. And that leaves us another slot for, who knows, a marine band or whatever else. Or instead of going up the middle for 80, we could go way outside, couldn't we? But need a bit more development there. For whatever reason, I couldn't get it to work, all right? If someone else can. If you take off the 15 element and put your meter on it, you go, well, where is the next resonant harmonic? I've forgotten, to be honest, but there we are, Randall. That was the reason. Okay, any suggestions for multi-band antennas for a backyard full of 18 metres high pine trees that are 3 or 4 metres apart? Well, Edward, I've put my DX command up against trees in the kind of forest area at the back of Holly Farm. I think you'll find.
Yeah.
I just think you'll find somebody did some work that suggested there was a load of attenuation on 160 for some reason. I got no idea why 160, but I think you find it'll just work.
I think it will.
I tell you what you should do, Jonathan, is just get 4.95 meters of wire, right, and a tennis ball, throw it over a tree, bring the base down to the ground, stick some rails on it, and see if you get 20 meters.
Yeah,
I think you'll find you will, and then you can homebrew it. It's Commander.
Of course you can. In fact, if you look back through some of Steve temporarily offline's older videos, he's taken it down now because he's moved, but his DX Commander Classic was among trees. He has kind of 3 or 4 trees in his backyard, and the Classic stood right in the middle of all of them.
Alex, excuse me. The book feed point impedance is 36 ohms, but even with my meter, I've never found 36 ohms. I think it'd be 36 ohms over a perfect ground where you don't have a perfect ground. I think you'll find it is very close to 50 ohms, Alex. So don't worry about it. There's a few questions here, so hang on a minute. So John's saying use the pine trees to support the verticals. Yeah, that's fine.
Yep.
Martin's reckoning HF will go right through the trees, and I think so too.
I reckon so too.
Gilroy was here, agrees. Let me read this. Is it recommended to build the X-Commander antenna on a house roof with radials? If you can if you can maintain it, like the top of a garage roof or something, go on. If you go to dxcommander.com and go on the customer photo gallery, there's a few roof mounting DX Commander. I never thought it would work. It does, apparently. What's this one? On my first 50 12.4, I cut all elements for 15. I love not using a tuner. 36 ohms. Oh, okay. So John's just clarifying what I said. Only ever, so it's perfect ground, yeah.
What's the perfect ground?
Yeah, indeed. Rodney, who I think has, Rodney's done a roof mount in the past. I've measured mine at a quarter wave. I only saw 48 ohms. Okay. So speed plates. If we've got new speed plates, is there any reason we can't do the same build with the last generation Expedition? I think Jonathan and I mentioned this. You could take a Dremel, couldn't you, and cut some slots in it?
Yeah, you could. So, you can't use, but you said you can't use the new plates on the old pole because they don't fit in the right place.
It's the ground plate that won't fit.
Oh, it's the ground plate. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you've got the old white plates, there's no reason why you can't just get a couple of.
Do you want to answer that one, Jonathan, from Edwin?
For best for SOTA, probably the Expedition. It goes up nice and quickly, and it's lightweight as well. Particularly if you only want to take the stuff you need, if you just want to take a couple of elements and you don't have to carry around everything with you, then Expedition is probably the one to go for.
Yeah, I did a presentation the other night, and there's a lot of benefit. There's a lot of benefit to an end-fed half-wave, right? But I just want you to consider the following. You've spent last night preparing, 2 hours in a car, you've walked up a hill, and you now want to save 4 minutes by putting up an end-fed instead of a DX Commander. Okay, well, do the maths.
Don't get me wrong, I love an end-fed half-wave as much as the next bloke, but yeah, you're right.
Rob is surrounded by white cedar trees, and his work's fine. Does HF go through a building? Well, I find it does, all right, because we're not in VHF, all right? I'm as astounded as the next guy, to be honest. Tom, by the way, doesn't agree with the roof-mounted business. It wasn't designed for roof-mounted. We've had a few people try, but he's not convinced.
I've never tried it with a DX Commander. I've personally never tried it with any vertical antenna. But I think grounding or the ground plane is going to be your problem there, even with radials. I think that the advantage of putting it on the ground is you're kind of coupling it to the ground itself.
I know. But some people have had success. I'm just saying.
There are vertical antennas that will be happy at height. That's the thing.
Yeah, indeed. Have you ever had, particularly 10 meters, like an Antron 99 or something? Have you ever had to retune the elements after a long term in the sun and the elements stretch? I've never had elements stretch. I've had customers who think their elements have stretched, but something else has happened.
Usually what happens is it's not the element that's stretched, it's the shock cord. So you might need to replace the shock cord after a few years, but otherwise, no.
Classic and Expedition tested on a roof mount, garden mount in the woods, and a wooden raft on the ocean. Also tested different radial formations and sizes.
I want to see a picture of it on the wooden raft.
Yeah, so do I.
Yeah.
Okay, so that presentation is on YouTube. Just look for Your Cars. And I'm apparently an honorary member of that club. So here we are. Tyler's got his surrounded by houses in a small yard, and it works great. And this man is replacing his end-fed half-wave with the new Expedition. Lovely.
Excellent.
Okay. Nathan, by the way, we're going to wrap up in a minute. End-fed half-wave is great. Totally agree. If you're making an effort to go boardable, why skimp on 5 minutes? And that's what I think. So good. This guy's got a question. Very good. Thank you, Edward.
Nice.
Here's the question now. Can I have a vertical high up in a tree and the radials on the ground 18 below? No, because what you're doing is you're basically grounding the other end of the dipole. So it's either grounded or not, if you know what I mean. You can go a couple of feet, but there we are. So the cymbals look like they might be a bit high and the 10-inch tom's not quite close enough. It is close enough, I promise you, because of my snare drums in the way. And the cymbals are that height, so I can actually see what everybody's is doing. Okay. And there we are, with the time approaching 21:59, ladies and gentlemen. I promised Jonathan we would shut down by 10 o'clock. Right, okay, so a bit of detail. He's surrounded by buildings 10 and 12, not so good. 40 to 15 works very well, says Ron. So there we go.
That doesn't surprise me too much.
No, or me. And by the way, I tried, just before I go, a little bit of data for you. Mike made me a 5/8 Game Master. There we are. And we put it on a 12-meter pole. So the base of it is about 4 meters high. Okay, so that's a 5/8 Game Master, the homebrew. So 4, 5, 6, I can't remember. Say 5 meters off the ground versus a 10-meter ground mounting. And I found there was about an S.5 difference. Okay, so you're probably getting on for 8, 9, maybe even 10 dB.
That's not exactly much, is it?
No. I mean, put it this way, it's not deaf, right? A ground mounting isn't deaf, right? Game Master's going to be better, right? If you get it up to 10 meters, even better. Right, if I click the brand button, I'll get my end live button ready, then I can use my other camera to say cheerio, and I can say cheerio to, which way is that pointing? I'm pointing the wrong way. I should be on the other side of the screen there. I'll say good night to Jonathan. Jonathan, I did it at 21:59 and 48 seconds.
Well done. You've done well.
Are you proud of me?
I'm very proud of you.
Ladies and gentlemen, 73, which, if you don't know anything about ham radio, 73 is best wishes. All right, best wishes from me.
73 for me.
And there we are. I'll click this button and it's all over. Trust you've had a good night. Thanks very much if you've been one of those people that have been following along all the way from 8:50. A very good evening.